Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Saturday. I hope the weekend is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It always feels weird at this time of year, doesn't it? Saying the weekend. Every day kind of seems to merge into each other. So you don't even know it's a weekend until suddenly it creeps up on you and you see the day on your phone. But it is the weekend and Arsenal go into it on the back of a win. Not a convincing one. Definitely not a pretty one or an exciting one, but it's a win. It's a win that moves them up to second in the Premier League. And that's where they will head into 2025. So we're going to talk about that, of course, in this show, go over the big talking points from the game, look at what Mikel Arteta's had to say about it, do player ratings, look at what you guys have had to say about it. And of course, we're going to have to talk about the big news that Bukayo Saka has now had to undergo surgery. And basically the worst case scenario for Arsenal on Bukayo Saka's injury. Mikel Arteta confirming that in his post-match press conference last night at the Emirates. So we're going to have to talk about that and more in today's show. I am feeling a little bit better than I was yesterday. Obviously, I didn't get to go to the game yesterday because I was feeling pretty rough. Still not feeling great, but feeling a little bit better. So hopefully I'm going to flow a little bit better when I'm talking to you guys, because I know yesterday was a bit of a jumbled mess because I could barely even hear what I was saying. My head was throbbing so much. So look, a win is a win, and it was an important one for Arsenal. They had to take advantage of Chelsea losing and dropping points, and they did that, and they absolutely deserved to win. It was dominant victory in terms of possession, everything like that. I mean, the first half was just the type of game you just do not see in the Premier League. It was just absolute defence against attack. I think Arsenal at one point had close to 90% possession, which is just unheard of in the Premier League. I have to say I was surprised by Ipswich. I actually thought they would come out a little bit. I didn't think they would play like Everton did, but they actually played worse than Everton did in terms of a low block. And I suppose coming into the game on the back of a 4-0 defeat against Newcastle, they were absolutely determined not to let something like that happen again. And to their credit, they stayed very, very compact. They were disciplined. They didn't give Arsenal very much time. So you've got to give them a little bit of credit for that. But look, Arsenal could have done more, probably should have done more. We've seen this type of game before from Arsenal, especially at the Emirates when teams come and sit deep against them. Arsenal just struggle to break them down. Now, this was, of course, the first game in the post-Bukayo Saka era for this season. Obviously, not forever, but just for this season. And it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to. Arsenal are not going to be able to suddenly make do without Saka like that. It's not going to be a quick fix. A player they're so reliant on, who's so consistent in what he does in terms of goals and assists and threat. You can't expect him to go out and Arsenal just to immediately sort of make light of his absence. That's just not going to happen. They played Martinelli on the right yesterday. I didn't think Martinelli was horrendously bad. I thought he did a few good things, certainly defensively, which obviously is not really the thing you really want from your winger. But in that second half, he did a nice couple of runs down the wing to get Arsenal up the pitch. He did play a part in the goal. It was obviously his ball from the right, which I liked. He didn't take too much time. He just whipped it in and found its way to the back post. Brilliant from Trossard to set up Havertz, and a lovely finish from Havertz to make it 1-0. And that was after sort of 25 minutes of Arsenal just pinning Ipswich back in their own penalty area. And you thought to yourself, well, that's good. The goal's been scored, or Ipswich are going to have to come out a little bit now. They didn't. They never did until sort of latter stages of the second half. Gabriel Jesus obviously had the ball in the net soon after. It was fractionally offside, which is unlucky. I don't know how he managed to squeeze that in. There was a couple of efforts during. Timber did well, sort of running through, having a shot that was saved. Declan Rice had one that was very, very similar, but it went over that time. And so it was 1-0 at half time, and you kind of expected more from Arsenal in the second half, but it just never really materialised. It was a type of game, as I said, that we've seen plenty of times at the Emirates against these sort of sides where Arsenal struggle to break the team down. I mean, they should have made it 2-0. I don't know how Gabriel misses that header from Declan Rice's corner. I think he was scared of the post. When you see him coming in, it's not... He attacks it in the sort of way that he always attacks deliveries, but it's when he actually goes to make the header, he's almost like flinching a little bit, I think. And I think he's very aware of that far post because he's so close to it. And I think that definitely plays a part in how he puts his head on the ball. He's just a little bit scared of that post, I think, and that leads to him putting it wide. But it was an absolute sitter. I mean, he scores that 9 times out of 10 and has, that goes in to make it 2-0 with 25, 30 minutes to go. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Arsenal go on to win it 3 or 4-0. It didn't happen, and that certainly didn't set up a nervy finish because I never felt like Ipswich were going to get close to getting a goal. But I suppose you never know. When it is just a one goal, someone can stick one in the top corner from 30 yards, or one can take a deflection that leaves David Raya wrong-footed and it goes in, and suddenly you're left licking your wounds after a painful draw. But that didn't happen. It was 1-0 to Arsenal, and they got the job done. I mean, when you look at the stats, it was, total domination. I mean, possession dropped down to 68-32% by the end, because the second half Ipswich did have a little bit more of the ball, didn't have a shot on target, right? Didn't have a save to make. 13 shots for Arsenal, just a 3 for Ipswich. They had 0.16 XG, Ipswich. Arsenal just under 2 goals XG. Obviously, Gabriel's you'd think would be the absolutely massive amount of that XG. But they're going to have to improve, Arsenal, no doubt about it, especially at home in these type of games. Away from home, I think they get a little bit more space, and they can express themselves a little bit more. And we saw what happened in an open game like it was against Crystal Palace the other day, when they had more space and they could attack and they could play on the transition, and they scored 5 goals and they looked great. We've seen that similarly at Sporting and at West Ham recently as well. But it's these type of games where they do struggle to break teams down, and they're going to have to find a way to improve that, because a lot of games coming up are at home, and obviously that should be an advantage, because you want to play your games at home, and Arsenal have a lot of home games coming up, but they're going to be difficult ones. And especially when you look at the sort of teams that are coming up, Newcastle in the first leg of the League Cup semi-final, you'd imagine they are going to keep things very, very tight in that game. Manchester United, maybe not, but definitely Newcastle. I think Villa will as well, and look to play on the counter-attack. So it's going to be, Arsenal going to have to find a way without Bukayo Saka to be a little bit more threatening. I think what I was disappointed with yesterday, I would have liked to see more, was players sort of taking the initiative, because when Arsenal did look a bit of a threat, it was when players got on the ball and just drove forward. And that's where they got a bit of joy. I mentioned Jurriën Timber in that first half, when he suddenly saw a space and just went. And he went through and ended up getting a shot away. There was a good save. Declan Rice did it in the first half as well. Mikel Merino, who I thought was good when he came on in the second half, he did something similar when he just saw some space and drove into it. And that ended up giving him a shooting opportunity. Martin Odegaard had one in the second half where the keeper made a decent save, where he just drove into the box from quite far outside it. And I would have liked to have seen Arsenal doing that a little bit more, rather than just the sort of passes, the sideways stuff. When you see a little gap in front of you, go for it. Try and expose Ipswich in that way. There were shooting opportunities that the team turned down as well. When you're playing against teams who are going to sit that deep in that lower block, when you do have a sight of goal and a shooting opportunity, just take it. Show a little bit more ambition to get a shot away, because you don't shoot, you're not going to score. And I thought Havertz had a couple of opportunities on his left foot that he didn't pull the trigger. Declan Rice similarly as well. Just like to see them taking a little bit more initiative when they had the ball at their feet, and they did have a decent sight of goal. But 1-0 win for Arsenal. Mikel Arteta was happy with the points, which is understandable, because that is the most important thing. Obviously, he says, I'm very happy with the victory, the clean sheet, with the big parts of the game. It's difficult opposition, playing so many games. You see that teams are winning for very small margins. Today, we could have done the margins much bigger. At the end, we didn't, but we held our nerves in the last few minutes, to defend well in those areas. So I'm very, very happy. On whether the team should have scored more, he said more. And today we had some big openings as well in the second half when we were a little bit more stretched. They were a little bit more aggressive. The big header of Gabby as well, 1 yard. So we should have scored more, but it's a consistency. The team conceded nothing again. The defensive behaviour was again outstanding. So that's something that's always going to give us a chance to win games. I thought this bit was interesting at the end. I think it was James Gunnerblog who asked this question. So on whether tonight was a more satisfying result than the Palace game. I think this does sort of speak volumes in terms of Arteta and what and how he sees games. Obviously, the Palace game was a very exciting game. It was 5-1, but Arsenal conceded about 15 shots. Palace could easily have scored more than 1 goal. It was just a very un-Mikel Arteta type game. And so he said, when he was asked whether this was a more satisfying result than Palace, he said, in terms of how we controlled the position, 10 times better, because we conceded 14 or 15 shots against Palace, and it's nothing that we normally do. So overall, I think this one was much better, but it's about the goals as well and the beauty of it and entertaining people. And that one was probably a bit better for them. And it's right, as a fan sitting there watching Arsenal, what's the more exciting game? The 5-1 against Crystal Palace that was very, very open, and Arsenal conceded lots of opportunities, and had the big moments gone a little bit different in that game, they could have ended up losing despite the fact they won 5-1 in the end. What's more entertaining for fans to watch and for neutrals to watch? It's that game, no doubt about it. But from a manager's point of view, especially a manager like Mikel Arteta, last night's game will give him a lot of satisfaction in terms of how they just gave Ipswich absolutely nothing. But there's no doubt that they need to improve in an attacking sense, and they need to find a way to be able to unlock these low blocks, especially at the Emirates. Right, player ratings wise, this is what I've gone for today. David Raya gave us 6. Bit of the sort of tone for that second half was set by David Raya and William Saliba, wasn't it? From the kickoff, the ball went back to David Raya, and then he played not the greatest of ball to Saliba. Saliba didn't take a great touch, and Sammy Smodic sort of robbed the ball of him and probably could have had a go at goal, but he didn't. He didn't take the shot early, and Saliba ended up closing him down. But I thought that kind of set the tone for a little bit of a sort of scrappy second half for Arsenal, and it gave Ipswich a bit of a lift. I gave Raya a 6. Timber and Saliba I gave 7s each. Gabriel I gave a 6. I'm sorry, I've got to take a mark off for that miss. It was just so bad. You got to lose a mark for a miss like that. It was terrible. Lewis Skelly was my man of the match. I thought Lewis Skelly was brilliant. You know, I thought Calafiori would probably start yesterday. He didn't. He stuck with Lewis Skelly, which again, this just shows all the rubbish that Arteta doesn't trust youth. And all that, and doesn't give them an opportunity. If he thinks they're good enough, if they prove to him that they're good enough, he'll play them. And he's doing it with Lewis Skelly, which is, you know, and he's being rewarded for it, because Lewis Skelly was absolutely brilliant. What a talent he is. I just loved how strong he was, how confident he was. He barely misplaces the pass. I saw a stat, I think, since he's come into the starting 11, he's misplaced 5 passes across all of those games, which is incredible. You know, to be that good and composed on the ball in a position you're still getting used to. But I also love the fact that Ipswich tried to rough him up a bit, didn't they? I think there was Delap was doing it, and then someone else, I can't remember who it was, who pushed Gabriel and Gabriel smashed into the hoardings. And when the guy ran back on the pitch, there was Lewis Skelly to get in his face and protect his teammate. You know, this is a 19-year-old kid who's just come into the team, and he's got the sort of presence and the confidence to do that. I just love watching him play. I think he's been brilliant. Such a good addition to the squad. So he was my man of the match. I gave him an 8. I thought Declan Rice had a good game. Gave him a 7. Odegaard at 7. Odegaard wasn't at his best, but I still thought in that second half, especially, he was probably one of the few players. If Arsenal were going to do something, he was going to be the man to do it, like that run into the box, which ended with the keeper making a save. I gave him a 7. Havertz, I gave an 8. I thought it was a good game by Havertz. Good goal, good finish. Nice to see him get into that position right in the 6-yard box. It's what you want to see, even if you're playing in that deeper role that he is. Still need, in the absence of Saka, we talked about, you know, I thought this would be the front line. I thought it would be, because in the absence of Saka, you need more goal threats on the pitch, I think. And so for Havertz, even though he's playing deeper, he still needs to ensure that he is a goal threat. So it's good to see him getting in that position. Brilliant ball from Trossard as well. So I gave Havertz an 8. Martinelli and Jesus, I gave a 6. I didn't think Martinelli had a terrible game. You know, there's going to be a lot of spotlight on Martinelli, especially if he's the guy constantly playing on the right-hand side to replace Saka. But it's going to take a lot of getting used to. It's for Arsenal, for us as fans. But I thought there was some okay signs from Martinelli. Like I said, he played a big part in the first goal, whipping that ball in. Did a really nice cross in about the first couple of minutes as well that no one attacked in the 6-yard box, which I thought deserved better as well. And there was a couple of good moments for him getting down the flanks as well in the second half. So I gave him a 6. Jesus a 6. Obviously couldn't keep up his scoring run. Very unlucky with the offside goal. I gave Trossard a 7. Lovely assist from Trossard. The subs who came on, Thomas Partey came on right at the end. Mikel Merino came on sort of midway through the second half. And I thought it was a good cameo for Merino, actually. Loved that little sort of drive into the box and the shot the keeper made a good save from. And yeah, I thought he made a difference in that second half, Merino. So those were the 2 subs. Not going to give Partey a mark, but I give Merino a 7 because, Partey only came on, obviously, for the last few minutes. Right, this is what some of you guys have been saying in response to the match. Benjamin's got in touch, said, not a great performance. I felt nervous in the second half that they were going to punish us, but they didn't look good at all. A better team would have punished us tonight. I thought Rice was exceptional again. For me, Odegaard looked off it until he picked up what we thought was an ankle injury in the second half. For the next 25 minutes, it was woke himself up and thought, what am I doing? And became the orchestra, but then dropped off towards the end. Take the points and move on, but not an enjoyable watch. Feel better soon, Charles. Thank you very much, Ben. Abdura, I think that is, says, hey, Charles, Arsenal are way too slow in terms of ball progression today. Playing it safe with little or no intensity. At times, they're even sloppy, giving the ball away unnecessarily. Playing like this against opposition opponents will only lead to trouble. It's reminiscent of that Fulham game a few weeks ago. They really need to step up if they want to stay competitive. What are your thoughts? Yeah, look, I agree. They do need to move the ball quicker. There was a couple of moments in the second half when they did move the ball quicker and they got in behind. I think there was one moment when Odegaard slipped a nice ball into Havertz, who got sort of down the left-hand channel and his cross was cleared away from a corner. But it was one of the few times when Arsenal really, used the ball quickly and a couple of one-touch passes and they got in behind Ipswich. And that's the sort of thing you want to see more. But I'm just not sure Arsenal have those type of players in this team, unfortunately, at the moment. You look at, they've got some good, strong, physical players. They've got some clever players, but they don't have those sort of magician-type players, do they? That allows them to do that and the quick passes and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's not the Arsenal we certainly knew under Arsene Wenger, is it? Sam says, what a waste of a game. Arsenal was scrappy at best, so bad and so lazy. Arsenal slept on the pitch. Look, 3 points is 3 points in the Premier League at the end of the day. I don't think they were lazy. I don't think they were bad. I don't think they were good, but I don't think they were bad. You don't dominate in the Premier League like they did to that sort of extent and be bad. It was just a very controlled win Entertaining? No, not at all. But it was a controlled win. I don't think they were bad. Scott says that wasn't the best match to watch, but I thought we managed the game well, especially for a 1-0. We probably should have scored more, but it was a nice little birthday win for me today. Happy birthday, Scott. Odegaard looked frustrated about Saka. I think Ethan might be the best suited to play on the right. MLS should have come off on the hour mark. He was gassed out. Would have loved a KC cameo for the last half hour. Charlie says that was a tough watch. Not for the first time at home this season. Shakhtar Everton. This is an incredibly well-drilled, well-coached, organised, structured team, but I do feel it's missing the next factor player, someone who might sacrifice a little bit of tactical structure, but who could do something out of nothing. I love Saka, but even he's not that. Again, he's an incredibly efficient and effective player. I think the team needs a maverick like Rafa Leao or Nico Williams. Neither are possible in January, but come the summer, it has to be a priority. Nostradamus says Lewis Skelly and Timber were both immense, rapid physically and mentally. So that's how some of you guys are reacting to last night's win at the Emirates. And there's a league table. That's what it looks like after yesterday's game as we head into 2025. That will change before Arsenal's next game, because I think Arsenal are the only team playing on New Year's Day. I think everyone else is playing on New Year's Eve. So that will give the opportunity to the likes of Chelsea and Forest to move back above Arsenal. But for now, Arsenal are sitting in second, 6 points behind Liverpool. And but Liverpool obviously have that game in hand. I still look back at those two draws, don't you? Fulham and Everton. You know, I said at the start of this run after the international break, if Arsenal win every single game between then and the new year, they would end the year about 4 or 5 points behind Liverpool, and it would be game on. And if they'd have done that, if they'd have got 4 more points, they'd be sitting there now 2 points behind Liverpool, even with Liverpool having a game in hand. You know, that would be 5 points should they win that. And just look at those two drop points, those two draws against Everton and Fulham just really do feel very, very costly, which is a real shame. But that's where you are. Liverpool on top, 42 points. Arsenal second with 36. Right, we're going to talk about Bukayo Saka before we wrap this up. This was obviously the big news from the post-match press conference yesterday after the game. Mikel was asked on any further news on Bukayo Saka. He said, I would prefer to leave that to the doctor himself, but he had a procedure. Everything went well, but unfortunately, he'll be out for many, many weeks. On the sort of exact timeline of what that means for Saka, he said, I said many weeks, so I think it will be more than 2 months. I don't know exactly how much longer. I think it will depend, how the scar tissue starts to heal for the first week or so, the mobility of that. Let's see. It's very difficult to say. So it is bad news for Arsenal. Obviously, it's the worst case scenario. The surgery is always the last option. You don't want to put a player under knife if you don't have to. But obviously, the scan results have forced Arsenal's hand here, and they've had to take a decision. Whether that's to protect Saka in the long term. If he doesn't have surgery and he comes back, would there be a greater opportunity for him to do this again? Potentially so. I'm no medical expert, but obviously they think that the best route for him to go down is to have this surgery, and hopefully when he does come back, he'll be in the best possible shape because of it. But it is a blow. If it is going to be longer than 2 months, then you're looking at, probably mid-March at the earliest. It's going to be, as I said, it's just a massive challenge for Arsenal now. I'm not saying it's the end of their title challenge, but it is just going to be a hell of a lot harder to win the title without Bukayo Saka. It's that simple because he's so important. Arsenal rely on him so much. And yeah, it's going to be a hell of a challenge to chase down a Liverpool side who looks so good and score so many goals. To do that and chase them down, take advantage of any slip-ups without your best player, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Arsenal and Saka. So it is a blow, and they're going to have to find a way to cope without him. January is now just around the corner. I've said it before, the window Arsenal have always seen as a react. If they're going to do it, it's going to be reactive. And if this isn't something that's reactive, I don't know what. You've got to go and replace Bukayo Saka. Surely you've got to bring in another goal threat. Surely you do. There is good news on Raheem Sterling. Mikel saying in the press conference yesterday that knee injury isn't as bad as they first thought, and he's getting better and should be available pretty soon. But even with Sterling back, I still think Arsenal need to go out and find something. Whether that's a permanent option, I'd be surprised. I think a loan is a much more sort of realistic option right now, and do your proper permanent business in the summer. But they've got to scour the market. They've got to try and take advantage of any opportunity they can get. We've talked about players who could potentially be available on loan, and Mouani, Gula at Real Madrid. I don't know. I haven't heard anything myself yet, but there's got to be opportunities out there. And for Jason Ito, the interim sporting director who's, potentially wanting to do this job on a full-time basis with the recruitment process going on to replace Edu, there's no better place for him no better opportunity for him to sort of throw his hat into the ring by pulling something out of the bag in January and getting a really good deal for Arsenal that impresses the decision makers at the club and shows that he can do these type of deals. So it's a big opportunity for Arsenal. The fact that January is rolling around right now, I think it's one they have to take. I just don't see. It's just clearly obvious, I think, isn't it, for all of us that the attack needs strengthening. There needs more options, and that was before Saka got injured. Now he's got injured and potentially could miss, a large chunk of the second half of the season. I think if Arsenal realistically want to still be in the hunt for silverware this season, they've got to go out and bring at least one other player into the club. Right, and that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate your time. As always, do have a good start to your weekend, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Anything you want me to discuss, let me know by getting into the comments. I'll pull them together and get some of them included into the show. As always, have a good day, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.